Hey guys, I've recorded this lesson about 2 or 3 different times and I've tried different ways, and I keep asking myself, how can I present this in a manner that would make sense to you if you've not seen this before at all? Okay, you might need to reach out to me and ask a few extra questions more than what you've done, or maybe for the first time during these NTI days. So don't be scared to do that. I'll be right here with you. I'm not going to be like, well, why didn't you understand it? This is new stuff. So if you need some extra help, please just reach out to me. Okay. Um, we're going to find the probability of independent events, and we're going to first off take a look at what we did yesterday. We said what would be the probability of flipping a quarter and it landing on heads. And the way that we do that is we create this fraction where the number of times that something could happen, what we want to have happen is on top, and the total number of possibilities is on the bottom. And when we take a look at a quarter, it has heads on one side and it has tails on the other side. And so we know that what we want is for it to be heads. So there's only one head, so that would be a 1 on top. But as far as like the total possibilities, there are two different sides of the quarter, so it'd be a 1 out of 2 chance. Okay? A 50-50 chance, a 50% chance. And that's what we focused on yesterday, was finding one event's chance of happening, one event's probability of happening using the want over total possibilities. Without going into a lot of details, what we're going to do today is we're going to be looking at two different events, and we're saying what's the possibility that the first event happens and then the second event happens right after that. And I don't want to go into the long way. I'm just going to jump straight into the easiest way to show you what to do so you can practice doing that, and then I'll be here to help you online if you need to come video chat with me. What is the probability that you can flip a quarter twice and both times it land on heads? And if I'm talking about quarters for a whole section, I'm going to put a P right here, and that stands for what is the probability of. And then in parentheses, I'm going to list how I want it to be. And so since we want to be heads both times, I'll put P parentheses H H. And so this is just a shorthand way of asking you a bunch of questions about, quarters and that sorts of thing. And let's get into it. The way that you would do this is you ask yourself, well, what's the probability that the first one will be heads? And you'd say, well, that's a 1 out of 2 chance. And then what you do next is you go, well, the second event right here, the second heads, when I flip the quarter, there's still going to be two sides on it, and there's only one of them with heads, so it'd be a 1 out of 2 chance again. So the first things you have to do is you have to go find the probability for each of these events, just like this, and write your fractions out side by side. And then the second and final thing that you need to do is just multiply these two fractions together. 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 2 is 4. There you go. There's your probable chance right there of flipping a quarter and it landing on heads, and then heads again. It'd be a 1 out of 4. And when you go to type this into the answer sheet, just type in 1/4. If your probability is 1 over 4. And that's what we're talking about today. It's independent events. The first event doesn't influence the second event. When we flipped that quarter and it wound up heads for the very first time, guess what? When we flip the quarter again, this first event did not influence the second event over here. It might be tails, it might be heads, but it has nothing to do with what happened before. Okay? So they are independent of each other, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So what is the probability that you can flip a quarter 3 times and get heads, tails, and heads? And we want in this exact order. Flip it 3 times and get heads the first time, tails the second time, and heads the third time. Well, the short way of writing the question would be P, H, T, H. And the way I've taught you to do it is to take a look at each event all by itself. What's the probability of flipping heads? 1 out of 2. What's the probability of flipping tails? Well, 1 out of 2 because it has nothing to do with what's before it or what would come after it. It's independent. And what's the probability of flipping heads? 1 out of 2. So no matter how many different events you have, you're going to get the individual of probability for each one. And then you just come back through and you just multiply all the fractions together. 1 times 1 times 1 equals 1. And 2 times 2 is 4. And 4 times 2 is 8. So there you go. Your answer would be 1/8. If you typed it in, it'd look just like this. What about dice? Hopefully this looks like a dice that you would roll on a board game, and you're familiar with it. One side has a 1, another side has a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6. There's 6 different sides, and each side has some of these labeled like this part right here. There's 4 on this side, there's 1 right here, there's 2 on this side. You get the idea. It's a regular dice. So what is the probability of rolling a 6, and then on your second turn, rolling a 2? We handle it the same way we do the quarters, but the probabilities are different. We want a 6, and there's only one 6 on this cube, so 1 is our top number. That's what we want. How many total sides are on that cube? Well, there's 6, so that would go on the bottom. That's the total possibilities. And then the same thing's happening with the 2. There's only one 2, but there's 6 sides. And now we just go and we multiply. So the probability of rolling a 6 and then rolling a 2 in that exact order, it'd be 1 out of 36. So the odds are very, very low of that happening. But that's how you handle this. And here's the last thing I wanted to do. I'm going to give you a section on your assignment today where we're going to use a dice and a quarter. And so what is the probability of flipping a quarter and it landing on heads? So that's what the head stands for right here. And then rolling a 6-sided dice and it landing on 4. And here's the 4 right here. So you just go and you get your individual probability for each event. 1 out of 2 for heads. There's only one 4 on that 6-sided dice, so that'd be a 1 out of 6. And now we just multiply these two independent events together, and it tells us it would be 1 out of 12. So that's how we handle these independent events. The first event has no bearing on the second event, and they have no bearing on a third event if there's a third event. You go and get the individual probability for each event, and then you just multiply them together, and that tells you the chances of that pattern of events happening just like that, because this is the way of saying you'll get heads first and then you'll roll a 4. It'd be a 1 out of 12 shot. All right, let me know if you need any help, guys. Good luck.